One of the best ways to ensure text you're entering in your document is going to stay organized, let's say you need columns and rows, well, you're going to create a table, and there are different ways of creating tables here in Microsoft Word. We're going to use this document called Asparagus 1 to experiment. Let's just scroll down into this document, just above the directions that begin with preheat oven. We'll click right above that. This would be a good place for an ingredient list, and as we think ahead to our table, we want to show the quantity of an ingredient as well as a description of the ingredient, and that means 2 columns. Now, depending on the number of ingredients in our recipe, we'll need several rows, but that can be determined on the fly as well. So let's look at different ways to insert the table at our flashing cursor. We'll go to the Insert tab and you'll see a table drop down. Give it a click, and the first option is to simply move across these cells and click. So if we wanted 2 columns and maybe we wanted 6 rows or even more, we could go as high as 8 using this method. Let's just go to 6 though and click. Now we have our table, and you can see what's happening here. It's filling automatically the full width of our page in between the margins and creating 2 equal columns. Alright, that might not be exactly what we're looking for, but it can be adjusted. We suddenly have a number of design and layout table tools at our disposal on the ribbon. But let's click Undo and look at another method. Again, we'll go to the Insert tab, click Table, and choose Insert Table this time. This gives us a dialog box where we can choose the number of columns and rows. We can type it in, for example, 2 for the number of columns and the number of rows. We can bump this up to say 5. Also down below, you can see the autofit behavior is set to fixed column width. So as we enter our content, the columns aren't going to expand to accept more content. It's going to wrap around and create a taller row. If we'd rather have this fixed, we can change the numbers, as you can see using the up arrow here. We go in increments of 1/10 of an inch, so we have some control before we actually create the table here. We can also auto-fit contents, which will automatically accept our contents and automatically create a table, kind of like what we just saw when we created a table using the previous method. Auto-fit window is automatically going to fit the entire window. Whatever we select here can also be saved. We can remember these dimensions for any new tables we might create in this document. That way we have a consistent look. Let's click Cancel because there is another way for us to create a table. I kind of like it because it gives us a little more control over the dimensions. Click the table drop down and choose Draw Table. Now when you move your mouse pointer into the document itself, you can see it's changing to a pencil. You're ready to start drawing. So if we wanted to, we could draw the full width of our table here. Let's go from not quite at the left margin, we'll just go in a little bit across and not quite all the way to the right margin and down. When we release, we've actually created the beginnings of our table. It's one big cell, but we still have the pencil icon. So if we want to create columns, all we have to do is draw the lines. Let's go at about the 2-inch mark. On the ruler, click and drag down, and when you see it changed into that dashed faded line, release your mouse. And now we have 2 columns. We could do the same if we wanted another column, and then we realize we only need 2, so we can remove. Look at the layout tools that are highlighted on the ribbon. There's one for the eraser. Just click on the line and it's erased, so we're back to 2 columns. Now we're ready to start working with our table. So let's just double click inside the first cell and we're ready to start typing. Let's say our first ingredient is 2 tablespoons. Of what? Well, we'll use our tab key. That gets us over to the next cell. Let's type in olive oil. Now watch what happens when we hit the tab key again. We get a brand new row. So maybe we want 24, tab stalks of asparagus. Hit your tab key and there's another row. Now of course once we've got all of our ingredients in there, we can move our columns around just by moving to the line in between. Notice the double arrows so we can adjust it. These are all things we're going to do a little bit later once we have a full table full of contents in there. Of course, there are other ways to create tables if you already have your contents. If you have the text, you can convert it into a table. We'll talk about that next.